Hey parents, welcome to the Mommy Pod, where we keep it real about parenthood. The joy, the chaos, and everything in between. I'm your host, a single mom, educator, and everyday woman, learning to give herself grace while chasing her dreams. Whether you're folding laundry, stuck in traffic, or sneaking in 5 minutes of peace, this space is your reminder that you're not alone. And you're doing better than you think. So, grab a coffee, grab a tea, grab a drink, take a deep breath, and let's get into today's episode. All right, welcome back to the Mommy Pod, a space for real conversations, healing, growth, and reminding you that you are not alone in this journey. Today's episode is one that I think every single parent, every mom needs to hear, because we're talking about something we don't always know how to access: peace in the middle of chaos. I'm joined by someone who has spent over 20 years helping women reconnect with themselves beyond the roles, beyond the expectations. Quinn Cashion is a therapeutic coach and personal mentor who guides single moms through the chaos, the joy, and everything in between, helping them find clarity, confidence, and a deep sense of calm that already exists within them. Quinn, I'm so honored to have you. Thank you for joining us on the Mommy Pod.
Well, thank you for the invitation. It was such a delight to have that pop in today and to be here because it's one of my favorite topics.
Great. Well, can you tell us about yourself and your background and anything that you'd like our listeners to know about you at first?
Yeah, wow. Well, in terms of my work for the over 20 years, I've been working in the area of well-being, self-development. And I've worked with single moms for many years and women survivors of violence and abuse and helping them get back into the workforce. And being a single mom myself when my kids were 9 and 11, and that journey as well has been something that really helped me in my work too, to just know what that experience was like, the challenges that come with that, and the importance that we have as moms to create an environment for our children to thrive in so that they can do that when they leave home. So
I love that. So you going through it is kind of what led you to, because that's my next question. What led you to specifically working with single moms? And
yeah, it wasn't on my radar whatsoever. I was in vocational counseling, as was a good chunk of my work, and then when the divorce came, it was just like I just felt that I was going to be working for the YWCA. I'm not quite sure why, but anyways, it was in my mind. It was going to happen. And the next thing I know, I was facilitating a single moms group for them and just helping moms navigate sort of the court system, navigating parenthood, the communication with their ex-partners, everything that comes with that stage of life of motherhood and single motherhood. And then from there, I moved into working with survivors of violence and abuse, and many of those were single moms and really struggling with finding their footing again. And so what was interesting as the facilitator of these groups were everyone's story was different, and yet it was the same. It's kind of like delivering babies, right? You know, we have the same system we go through, 9 months, but that experience is different for each and every one of us.
yeah, that's a really good way to look at it. Yeah. When you, what do you feel like moms are struggling with the most, and maybe is that's not being talked about? Or a common thing that you have found that moms are struggling with?
Well, kind of the opposite ends of the coin. One is the exhaustion that comes along with doing everything. You don't have that partner to pick up some of the pieces or, just manage the day-to-day stuff. Mm-hmm. And the other side of that is the joy. I actually enjoyed being a single mom. Like I enjoyed the experience of that. Was I exhausted at times? Absolutely, because that's just part of it. But the other part was I just really enjoyed. I raised two daughters, and so really wanted to create that environment for them. And because I've worked with women and young girls all my life, that I know how important it is to have our voice and
Mhm.
to maintain our well-being. And so there was no way I was going to let my daughters leave my home, my nest, without that intact. And so that was a really important component for me to make sure that they had that. And so I had to ensure that I created that environment for that to be developed.
I love that. And that you enjoyed being a single mom, that you had to find your peace. I think that's so important. I don't think anybody chooses to be a single parent,
I
but
don't, yeah.
it's important to choose the peace and to find the joy.
Well, I think every human being, if every one of us found that ability to ground ourselves into our innate well-being and our innate peace within us, I don't think we would be having so many wars right now. It's like there would wars in families, wars in communities, wars in the world. Like we would be at a different place as a human species if we were able to tap into that more of the time.
Yeah, I wish that we could all feel that way. That is for sure.
Yeah. But
Why do you, oh, go ahead.
I wouldn't mind adding on to that because that's what you just said is such a great point. And there's a wonderful tradition in First Nations, and I don't remember which community it is, but they talk about 7 generations ahead. And so what we do today in raising our children impacts 7 generations ahead. So if we're showing love and knowing how to critical think, how to have effective communications, how not to get bothered by what somebody else says, but figure out how to transform that energy into finding solutions, that will just help us maintain that positive direction in our societies.
That's really great. Why do you think that motherhood, especially single motherhood, is so overwhelming and it's hard to find the joy when it becomes so overwhelming?
Well, I wasn't the breadwinner when I was married. And so when that was gone, it was like, okay, it's like have to reestablish my footing. I have to figure out what I'm going to do. I had to take on the tasks that he took on before that I now had to take on and figure all that out as well as what I was doing also in the family. So it's really, I don't know what it's like for other single moms, but I felt like I went through a fog. Like I couldn't figure things out energetically. Like my whole system was so tired that it was hard to function and try to show up for your kids in the best way possible. So yeah, there's just all these layers that keep getting piled on. And if we're in a state of mind that is depressed, anxious, angry, all of those things, we're blaming the outside world for where we're at in our lives, that just adds to the whole mix. And it's hard to move forward if we're going to be in that kind of state of mind in our lives and in our parenting. Yeah, it makes it really hard.
Yeah. I think it's so important to find a way to ground yourself and find a way to regulate. I had to learn how to self-regulate. I'm still learning every day. Every day it's trying. But I didn't know that there was such a thing as self-regulation until I had my
Yeah,
son. And I was like, oh, yeah. So I think that's
yeah,
the big
that's such a
thing to
good point.
discover.
Yeah. Well, and that's so brilliant with what you just said because that's the aha moment, right? That's like, why hasn't anyone told me this before? And it's like that aha moment. It's what I call an insight from within that it's like anyone can tell you that, but if you're not ready to receive and to open up and going, oh, yeah, that makes sense. And then you start looking at life completely different because you can't go back to where you were before,
Mhm.
because you've learned something new that it's like, yeah, that doesn't make sense to me anymore. And so one of the things that I do that's very different from the mental health field right now, which is at a $6 trillion business, is that we have to start looking at beyond our mindset. It's like we have three brains. We have the cognitive brain, helps us think forward. We've got our heart brain, which is love and understanding. And then our gut brain, which is about instincts and our, gut feelings of, we're so intuitive as women. And so knowing how to tap into that. And also, the body tells us when our thinking is off track. If I'm getting angry, my heart starts pounding really fast, And so do I speak from that place or do I just breathe into it and transform that energy into something that's more productive?
Yeah, that's good. That moves into like what does it look like when a mom or dad feels disconnected from themselves?
Well, we know what that feels like. And everybody's different because the sensations in our bodies are different. For some, it could be their shoulders are tight and they're up near our ears. Our heart's pounding faster. We got a dry mouth, sweaty palms. So everybody has that, and that's the gift of emotion, is that you feel it in your body. If I'm feeling anxious, I'm going to feel it in my body. If I'm feeling stressed, anger, like we feel it. Our system is so beautifully designed to let us know when we're off balance, when we're out of alignment. So who you are, you're brilliant to the core. That's just who you are. There's no question about that. And it's never been damaged. Regardless of what we've been through in life, it's never been damaged. So that's our starting point. That's the inner compass we want to tap into or anchor into. And then our personal thinking mind takes us off, could take us off into some emotional roller coaster, right? And we all have been there. And so the more we do that, the less balanced we are, less aligned. And so the more we come back, and that's our resilience. So we as human beings have this innate ability to be resilient. We always bounce back. And so some people bounce back to here because they don't understand the starting point, or they can't even figure out that they have resilience. So they're always out here somewhere. So really figuring out, how do I align again? And so when people start understanding that we're always feeling our thinking, they start to recognize how to come back to center.
Hmm. Thank you. That's really great. You talk about the inner advantage. Can you explain what that means?
So a lot of people mask, we go out the door, we put our masks on, if it's makeup or just showing up differently because I have to fit into this particular community or these people, I got to show up a certain way. And so, a lot of times we don't feel like we can be ourselves. And so what I teach is getting people back in alignment with who they are so that that person, that authentic human inside, can be out in that environment. So, I have some clients that are neurodivergent, and so they feel they have to mask more than others. And it's like, okay, well, it's okay that you can only go to a certain place for X amount of time because it's too loud or it's too many people. It's okay to go for short periods because that works for your well-being. So I always get clients to think about their innate well-being first. It's like the oxygen mask on the plane. You got to put yours on first. Even with your kids. I remember coming home from work one day, my 5-year-old was really cranky and just really out of sorts. And I noticed I was getting that really stressed out feeling. It's like, okay, it's Friday. I just want to relax, and she was really upset. And thank goodness I know what I know, because I was able to remove myself for that moment and start making dinner and just, getting curious as to why was she acting that way, and just realizing, wow, she's really out of sorts. So I was able to go back to her in such a loving way How can I help you tonight? How can I help you feel better? And in that moment, the relationship between us just completely changed.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it starts with our oxygen mask first. Yeah.
Do your kids love stories, colors, castles, and adventures? Well, Princess Liliana and the Rainbow Castle is more than just a storybook. It's an interactive journey where little readers explore colors while building imagination. From the sunny yellows of the Golden Hall to the sparkling blue sapphire shoes that she wears. Each page bursts with magic. Plus, it comes with a coloring book and activity pages, so the fun continues even after the story. It's perfect for toddlers, preschoolers, and early readers. Turn rainy days into rainbow days with Princess Liliana and the Rainbow Castle. It's the perfect way to teach your little ones colors while sparkling their imagination. It's available now on Amazon KDP. I've heard that but in different ways, and each way is different, and each way is very valid and important, and a good visualization of what we should be doing to remember what we should be remembering to do.
Yeah. Well, and I started teaching my kids at a very young age, like 3 years old. And, the mental life is abstract. You can't put your fingers on it, but it's there and it really creates our experience. Doesn't matter how old you are, 3 or 78, it doesn't matter. And so when I've been in schools, I developed a resilience manual to go into the school system. And one of the metaphors I use for children is the sun and the clouds. So the sun is our innate health. That is our joy, our love, our curiosity, our adventure, our ability to learn, to thrive. All of that stuff is innate in who we are. And so what covers up the sun when we're outside? The clouds. And so when I have cloudy thinking, I'm mad, I'm angry, I feel sad, I'm afraid. Those are clouds, and it covers up our sun. And so when my kids would get upset, it's like, oh, wow, you're really cloudy today. How can I help your sun to come out? It's like, do you need a hug? Do you need some quiet time? It's getting them, to empower your kids to learn how to self-regulate, as you're saying. And if they could see that visual of my son's back out, it's like, wow, yay, high five, you did it. And they have that power inside of them to shift that. And it's so beautiful to watch.
I love that. I'm gonna use that with my babies. I think that's so good. Now that's a good visual.
Yeah. And sometimes I get families to just create a big sun, like a family sun on the fridge. And then, if it's cloudy, each one has their own little cloud that they could put up. And it's like, okay, so you're in your cloud. What can I do to help? And then it becomes not something that's negative, but it's like, it's okay. You got a cloud. It's okay.
Yeah.
Do you need a hug? Do you want to go out and play? Do you need 5 minutes?
I'm gonna use that with my 3-year-old. She gets in such moods, and she does not want to be touched. She does not want to be consoled. She just wants to calm herself down, which I mean,
Good for her.
yeah, like I think it's great, but also I'm like, let me hold you.
Yeah.
I think like the cloud would be so helpful because she does use her words. She's very vocal, so she would be able to say, "No, Mama, I have a cloud right now," or something like that.
Yeah. And that's so amazing. And so the more we can reinforce, that's amazing. How do you do that? I remember laying in bed one day, and my daughter said, so there's sad clouds and there's angry clouds. And she goes, what does a scary cloud look like? And I thought, oh, that is so cool. And then we started playing with that idea and like, what color is it? And what shape is it? And is it, so we just had really a lot of fun exploring, what a fearful cloud would look like.
Yeah. I want to circle back really quick to um your life a little bit because you do you have I'm sorry. Do you have a you're a therapeutic coach. Did you go back to school? Were you already in the mental health field
Field, yes.
when you had your
Before I had my
children or
babies.
before? Yes, before.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Great. So I was thinking that's another like a whole nother step for parents to go through learning something else while parenting or going through.
Well, actually, after my divorce, I did go back to school and get my master's. So in the thick of my divorce, and so I was in my mid 40s when I did that.
Yeah, good for you. I'm
So
so interested in going back to get my master's, but I keep telling myself like I should wait till my kids are older, but why wait? But that's nice to know that it is possible. And I feel like,
everything's possible, yeah, for sure.
yeah. And did going back to school and getting your master's, did that really change the trajectory of your life and your children's life? Did that really help you? Um, I don't know if financially is the word, but did it help you just get a more stable footing?
I'm a lifelong learner. I love learning. So, because it was in a school system, which I'm not all that, don't enjoy all that much because I don't like structure so much. But I do love learning. And so, and again, what are we role modeling to our children? And showing them that learning all your life, regardless of what age you are, is really important. And doing something that you enjoy. I mean, I think elementary and high school is painful, not only socially, but academically, because they're forcing you to learn things a certain way when it's like, you're going to forget it when you leave school. So, I think that's why a lot of people are moving into homeschooling because then it's more specific and really helping kids. I've seen so many homeschooled kids really thrive because they're learning things that are tangible in this and really tapping into their intelligence as to
Yeah.
what they can do. Yeah.
I've been thinking that because I feel like sometimes, not all schools, but some schools could be giving the kids busy work
Yeah.
and could be going about teaching them the basics in such a long, drawn out, confusing way, I feel. But
Yeah, and what's happening, I don't know, in our schools here in Canada, we have 30, 35 kids in a classroom. And now they've allowed, kids that are neurodivergents are coming into the classroom as well. And so they're struggling in that environment. And if the teacher doesn't have extra support, like I just talked to one teacher who had three that were neurodivergent in a group of 30 kids. And so if you're a child that is, highly academic and, you're a sponge for learning, and then you've got other kids at the other end, or you got kids that, struggle with even sitting in a chair for 2 minutes,
mhm.
it's really hard on the teacher, and the ones that want to learn can't because the teacher has to put her time towards other kids and other situations. So, yeah, I think these days as parents, we have to really critically think on how do I best prepare my child for life,
Mhm.
academically, health wise, all of those things. It's just things we didn't think of back in the day. We just followed it, what everybody else did. And now it's like, is that the best way for my child?
Yeah. Speaking of which, like best ways for your children, what roles would you say moms play in raising resilient children?
Everything. But what happens, what starts first is our own resilience. Again, it's critical that we as moms know our own state of well-being, our own resilience. Like if we understand how will we create our own experience of resilience, then it's easier to share with our kids.
Mm.
Like, I've been cloudy. I mean, we all, as moms, you get cloudy. I mean, you just get maxed out. And it's been easy to say, you know what, I'm feeling really cloudy right now. And then they knew exactly what they needed to do to take care of me in that moment. One would leave.
Mhm.
She'd go to her room and do her own thing. And the other one would, Mom, can I get you a blanket? You want to lay down for a little bit? She was more the caregiver one.
Oh, that's so sweet. And
So it's just, it's that's their gifts, right? And they knew what worked best for them in those moments, but they also recognized, yeah, mom's cloudy, that's all.
yeah,
It wasn't a big whoop, and so I also had to recognize that if I'm cloudy, it's not a time to be reacting, it's not a time to be acting out or yelling or doing those kinds of things, but getting really clear. I'm
yeah.
angry or I'm feeling super cloudy right now, so best to give me some space.
And going through
Yeah.
things like divorce or illness, which are two things that you went through while raising young children, those two things can certainly cause a lot of cloudiness. Can you share what that was like for you and what helped you to through those hard moments?
Yeah, well, the my illness came when they were 3 and 5, and so yeah, I was bedridden for 3 weeks. Couldn't eat anything. Was basically herbal teas and broth was the only thing I could put in. And then fatigue afterwards for close to 2 years afterwards was, yeah, just what I think I struggled with the most was I couldn't be the mom I wanted to be,
Mhm.
because I had to put on that oxygen mask on first, and I was barely getting enough oxygen at times. And so, yeah, I think that was the hardest for me in those moments. And also knowing that I'm okay was at the core of myself. And one of the moments that really made that happen was because they thought I had a brain tumor at one point. And I remember coming home that day and I was feeling just like surreal, like how can this be? It was just, it's not, nothing I could do to change it. And so I had gone out for a walk and I just asked for God for a miracle because it's like, there's nothing I can do but pray. And when I came home, one of my children was playing with her toys, little pet shops, and just making up this little story. And I said, "Oh, what's your story about?" And she goes, "Well, it's about miracles."
No.
And I just prayed for a miracle. And it's not something we'd been talking about either in our home. And it's like, wow. And I said, "Oh, what's a miracle?" And she goes, "It's when God gives you a surprise." And
Oh,
I was so taken back by that. And then I just sat beside her and I said, "How do you get one of those?" And she just took her little hands and she went up like this. She goes, "It's when you open your mind to God." And yeah, it's been so long that happened, but it touches me every time.
yeah, how special. Not even today, like open your mind to God. That's so intentional.
It was very much so. And so I think it was like that moment, it was like I knew I was going to be all right. Like it was just a knowing. And I still had years of healing to do and MRIs and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, that moment was a real shift.
Yeah, that's so wonderful. How did you take care of yourself while you were still showing up for your kids?
I didn't do such a good job at the beginning, because going through the divorce and the challenges of that, making sure they were getting what they needed and making sure I could just show up for them. It was like I was the bottom of the list. So yeah, it took me a while, only because of that illness. And I think just everything just piled up and, yeah, I just got into a lot of thinking about everything instead of going into, I've got this, I can do this. And I think what's important when anyone's going through this is one moment at a time, one moment at a time. Because if we go into the past or we go into the what ifs of the future, we lose our bearings. But staying in the moment is what's helpful. And I think that's what got me through it, was the one moment at a time. The classical music I played in the morning when the girls woke up to just kind of set the tone, the spa music at night, the hot baths, the cuddles, the laughter. We laughed a lot. Kitchen table laughter, loved that. That was my favorite time of the day.
How did do you think that that kids learn more from what we say or how we show up emotionally?
How we show up.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have their antennas up, very alert. So, words mean nothing if the feeling behind the words is upset, frustrated, anxious, stressed, whatever. It's always how we show up. So, and it's okay to show up not great. It's like, yep, mommy's cloudy right now. Sorry about that, but I'm in my clouds. And I need a minute. I need several minutes. I'm going to go in my room and I'm going to close the door because I'm going to read for a little bit and then I'm going to come back out in my sun. So if you need me, you could do a small tap, but if not, just give me that time. And so you're starting to show them that your self-care is really important to you. So then they start to recognize that their self-care is also important.
What's one thing that moms can do that truly supports their children's emotional well-being?
Be completely present with them. Like really present, like that I see you, even if it's just 5 minutes. Bedtimes are great times, even in the morning, going in, giving them a kiss, good morning, and, to start their day, or, so grateful for you, or, just when we can see their sun, when we can see their innate health beyond the behavior, that's the most critical. If we could see our children as these resilient, beautiful human beings, regardless of their presenting behavior in that moment, that is the true gift to a child.
What would you say to the mom who feels like she's failing right now?
Well, it's just a thought.
Yeah.
It's just a thought. I'm ashamed. I have doubt. I have, all of those negative thoughts are just thoughts. But we can make them into like some really dark clouds over time. And so we really want to get to a place of, no, I'm not going there. It's like it's a cloud. And what happens to clouds? They pass. They always pass. And so if I can trust myself in that moment, and it goes back to self-trust, right? If I could really trust and have deep faith in who I am and the beauty that's inside of me, the resilience that's inside of me, then those thoughts just always pass. And it's like, okay, done with that. Now what?
Oh, that's so you've given us such great, wonderful tools to use. And I can't wait to dive in deeper with your materials. So, but is there one thing that you hope our listeners can take away from this conversation today?
Well, as a single mom, just take time to pause. If it's sitting in your car while you wait for your kids coming out of school, just take some deep breaths, really just go right into the body and just really feel that deep breath and know and say to yourself, I've got this. I'm doing the best I possibly can in this moment. And yeah, I find that could be the most helpful. I'm actually coming out with a book, I just sent it to the editor on Friday, and it's about lipstick. Okay, that's a whole nother podcast. But even lipstick, like just putting on your lipstick, if it's a lip gloss, just something, because we go through our days and we don't care about how we look because we just got to get through the day. And it's just a little bit of color or a little shine, it just kind of can really help.
You're
So,
so right.
yeah.
That is so great. Where can our listeners find you and learn more about you?
Yeah, so they can visit my website, so quinncashion.com, and /call. I could give you the link for that, and they could set up a 30-minute call for the Inner Vantage call, where I just, help them start a short reset, to get going in their day.
Amazing. That's so great. I hope that everyone reaches out to you. And I can't wait to look into your books. And I will be looking out for that lipstick book soon.
Awesome. Thanks so much. This has been great.
Oh, thank you. Have a great day. Before we go, I just want to say thank you. The Mommy Pod is built in the middle of real life: work, kids, laundry, rebuilding, and dreaming. And every time you listen, share, or support what we create here, it truly matters. If this episode spoke to you, one of the best ways to keep this podcast going is by supporting our Mommy Pod products. From our children's books and activity books to our calming sprays and digital downloads designed for moms and parents and families. Everything you purchase goes directly back into keeping the show alive. And if you can't purchase right now, sharing this episode with another parent means just as much. Thank you for being here.